There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. It's Wednesday and you're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Today we're going to take a look and revisit a case that we spoke about 3 or 4 years ago on Darkness Radio. Plus we're going to investigate a new legend, something that I've wanted to look into for quite a while. Joining us tonight, Julia and Phil Siracusa are here this evening to talk about their life immersed in the paranormal. Thank you both for being here this evening. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on.
Well, it's a pleasure. Now, before we get into the haunted house and the Legend of Cropsey, I'd like to kind of bring you in so that the listeners can know a little bit about you. I know, Phil, we've had you on in the past, so let's start with Julia for this part of the interview. Julia, have you had the paranormal as a part of your life your whole life, or is it something that only started once you got into this new home?
Okay, well, when I was young, my parents bought a house in Staten Island, and the house was haunted. The man that actually built the house died in my mother's bedroom, and he was there, and he would haunt all of us that lived there, me and my sisters. I remember him very clearly, following us all around, and you know, everywhere we went, he was there. I would have bad dreams about him. I would wake up in my room and he was there banging on the walls. And one day, my grandfather actually passed away. And then he came to me in my dream and he said, you know, that man is never going to bother you again. And he never did. And then I never seen anything again after that. So I believe that he blocked me, and maybe I blocked myself, too.
When you saw this man, explain to me what it was like. I mean, was this a full figure? Was it cloudy and murky? Did it look just like Phil sitting next to you? How detailed was this?
It was a cloudy figure. And I was also so young that I was confused and really didn't know what it was. I would overhear my mother talking to my father about what she thought was in the house, and he didn't believe her because he just didn't believe in any of that. So, but just listening to her, I knew something was wrong, but I was too scared to ever say anything to her. But I used to see, it was like a figure of a man. You know, he had a hat on, he smelled really bad. And it was always something different, though. Sometimes he appeared darker. Other times he was a little bit lighter, like a white shadow. And then other times I would make out the whole figure of a man. And I would always just listen and overhear my mother talking, and I knew something was not right. I think that my mother tried, I think she tried to hide a lot of things from me, too, as well.
Well, this man, was he ever intimidating to you other than just being ghostly in appearance? Was he trying to frighten you?
He would intimidate me. When
What was he doing?
Well, when I was old enough to take a shower by myself, he was in the bathroom.
Ooh.
Just watching me.
Yeah, that's a little unnerving.
Yeah, it was very scary.
Now, when did you start to talk to your parents about seeing him and telling him that, telling them that he was hanging around and watching you shower?
Honestly, I never did. I never did. When I was a teenager, when I was getting older, my mother would always talk about him. She would, say that she sees him all the time walking up the stairs and in the kitchen. And I think that I forgot maybe. Like, so cloudy to me that I think I actually blocked it out so much that I forgot, and like bits and pieces would come back. And then, I would just listen to her stories and talk about it. But I never actually told her until recently that I was, basically tormented by him.
You've got this thing moving around in your house, this being. Yeah. You're seeing it, your mother's seeing it, but your father is having no communication with this.
He doesn't want, nothing. He never did. So he says to this day.
And how do you think that they finally rid the house of this presence? Do you have any idea?
No, I don't think they ever did. I think he's still there. My mother actually sold the house when I was in my 20s. And from what I know now, he's still there. He was the engineer that built the house. He built the house for his daughter. His daughter ended up, dying, and then it was inherited by his niece, and then that my parents bought the house from the niece. But as far as I know, that he's still there.
Have you ever had the inclination to go back there to check it out for yourself?
No.
All right.
I never did, and I don't think I just never did. I drove by the house many times, and I just got the creepy, eerie feeling. And even friends of mine that are in this field, the pictures that I've shown to them of this house, it's just all not good. A very negative, heavy feeling when you see it.
Okay. And did you have any other experiences with the paranormal from that point forward until adulthood?
No. Well, I would see shadows. I saw shadows. I would hear toys going off in the middle of the night. But I would never see anything the way that I saw that man in my home.
All right. And what about you, Phil? Did you have a life filled with the paranormal as well, or was this a relatively new thing?
No, I'm a man who, remembers a past life very well. I remember dying in an explosion, being pulled into heaven, and then pulled through hell, and then born into the physical world. And I know it's hard for a lot of people to digest that. How could a person go from dying to heaven to hell and then born? But that's the way I remember it. And it's been a life journey since a baby.
So you remember that aspect of it. At what point did that awaken in you? Were you aware of that from childhood on, that this had happened to you?
Through adolescence, I used to have night tremors, not nightmares. And the difference would be that I'd wake up in cold sweats. My parents would run in the room, and I go back into the same dream with the same demons following me and chasing me in the dream, night after night after night. Now, this is back in the 70s. So, parents back in the 70s didn't believe in any of this stuff. My parents didn't anyway. It was just dismissed as a bad dream. But what I did start to realize a little bit older that I became, that there was a lot of negativity within the family, a lot of fighting, and that's what they do.
So quite a bit of dysfunction that was taking place. Do you believe that the spirits were causing that, or were the family that were fighting, were they maybe feeding the spirits because of that aggression and tension?
Well, I started to see shadows like 13, 14 years old in the house in Staten Island. And I would dismiss it, but then I would try to put it together with the night tremors. And it wasn't until years later that I started to tamper with a Ouija board with a couple of friends just to see what's following me, why are we having all these problems within the family. And I could tell you this. At first, nothing happened, absolutely nothing, and then at second, it's like you're moving the blanket, no, you're moving it. But what we started to realize was that it was like an energy that was building up around us, but that we couldn't see, but we could feel like we weren't alone. And that's when I feel like the door that was a crack open through adolescence was now wide open for the spiritual world.
Well, that makes complete and utter sense to have that kind of opening for you. Were you intimidated from an early age by the paranormal, or would you say it was more of a fascination and awe?
No, I was, I didn't call it paranormal. I called it being followed by a ghost back in the 70s and 80s. I would just tell my friends I'm being followed by something. So it wasn't a fascination. I was scared of it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely scared. because I knew that in that house we weren't alone.
Well, you've got a rare instance here with your life that you remember your previous death. What was it like to relive that death and feel that? Is there anything that you took away or that you could share with our audience to kind of explain the process of death itself?
Yes. My words are very clear, and I know that a lot of people have a hard time understanding that we truly never die. But the fact is that we never, ever die. And what that simply means is that when we cross over, our flesh will decay, but our energy and our soul will go on. And when it goes on, it takes the perfect fit of the life that we were trying to complete within the physical world, our aura. And when that happens, you take in fulfillment of whatever. If you lived a life of crime and hatred and pain, you're pretty much going to go to the dark of darkest places, which I would call hell. And if it's the opposite effect, you're going to go to a place with complete ecstasy, which I call heaven. I'm not a religious person by any means, but through my experience and all my knowledge of what I've been through, I'm not a psychic, I am not a medium, I'm not a paranormal investigator, I'm a lighthouse to the spiritual world. And I've learned that you can communicate. Have I ever seen anything face-to-face value 1,000%? I have not at all. Have I seen the shadows of what I believe to be the people that crossed over? Very, very strong possibility. But as a 49-year-old man, I will say this, Dave, that demons play trickery. And sometimes we think that it's the other relative or cousin or grandma that we're talking to, when the truth really is it could be an entity trying to manipulate us into believing these thoughts.
Yeah, I've heard of that. And it's scary, right? Because then you want to believe you're making connection with a loved one, somebody that you care about, and then the reality might be just something a lot darker.
Yeah, I lost a girlfriend back in the early 90s. She died of cancer in her early 20s. And she came through when me and a friend of mine were doing the Ouija board, and I didn't believe it at first, and I was like, Annette, is this really you? And she moved the planchette in a way where, as if I was speaking to her. But I took the next step. I blindfolded my friend, and I took my hands off. And I says, okay, if you're really here, tell me everything that I would know. And he didn't even know half the stuff. And she came straight through on the board and says she's buried at the Resurrection on Holland Boulevard in Staten Island. There was no stone, she said. There was a little wooden cross to go visit her, and she would do something if we went to go visit her. And I really found it hard to believe. But the next day we went to the cemetery. I couldn't find it. And the wind was blowing against us, and something told me to walk against the wind. 15 minutes later, we found it, and then a tremendous gust of wind came when we were by her gravesite. I believe that the spirits can communicate those that haven't crossed over to no heaven or hell. They're just stuck earthbound. And she explained to me like this. She goes, Phil, it's like being invisible. That's what it's like here. It's like you can't see us, but we can see you. And I got to tell you this, that throughout my years, I've tested the theory in the waters, and I debunk a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. But I came to realize that it's almost impossible for the spiritual world to know things in the physical world, that what we're doing. And over and time again, they've proven to me and all my friends what we were doing at different times when no one would know what was happening. So that showed me something.
Right.
Now, was it really this girl or was it a demon? I can't answer that. But because I've been followed by dark entities my entire life. So, I don't see demons with horns and pitchforks. I believe that Satan knows our fears, and that he will use things to bring fear into our lives in the physical world with entities to try to bring us down the wrong path, scare us, and cause harm towards people.
So you're not religious, but you believe in Satan and demons?
Yes. Because of experiences.
Okay.
Not because of a church or a school, because of this is all hands-on.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, Julia, here you have this startling experience as a child that terrified you, left you frightened, and kind of, in a way, post-traumatic stress disorder from dealing with that kind of thing at such an early age. You meet Phil, 1999? Is that when you guys got together?
Yes.
And how forthcoming is he from the get-go that he's involved in the paranormal? Is this something that you knew right away?
Well, when I first met him, I had a baby, so we would spend a lot of time at my house growing up. And he said to me one day, I'll never forget this. We were sitting in my living room. He said, Julie, there's a man in your kitchen. And I just looked at him, and I just started shaking, like everything just started crashing back, just the way he said it to me. And he was right. There was a man in my house. And I guess that was like our first experience together. And then as the years went on, he would tell me things that he went through in his life. And I shared some stuff with him too. And that, I didn't really know a lot until that book came out. When the book came out, there was a lot that I didn't know. And maybe he just didn't want to scare me.
How did that work? Once you found out, how did that make you feel?
I was pretty shocked at some of the things in there. And, like growing up in a haunted house, I believed him 100%. I always knew that he had an attachment. I mean, we experienced things together. It was never to the experience that I was dealing with growing up in my childhood home. But I knew and I believed everything that he said. There was just some things that I didn't know. But it was interesting to find out, to say the least.
Okay, and I'm just out of curiosity, if you'd have known about all the dark things surrounding him, being a mother with a new baby, do you think you would have avoided this relationship like the plague?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. I can't answer that.
Well, knowing what you know about it now,
I probably wouldn't have avoided it. Now we're dealing with it together. We have 3 other children together.
And Phil, you see this spirit with her and around her and in her home. And what's that first initial thought to you? Are you like, oh, God, here we go again?
Yeah, it's funny because I slept over that night on the couch in the living room. Their bedrooms were upstairs. And I woke up early in the morning, 5, 6 in the morning, and I see – now, when I say that I see a person, it's through the mind's eye. It's not through the vision of the eye. It's the mind's eye, how they make you see them. And I'm looking. He was a tall, thin man. And I thought it was like maybe I'm still stuck in a dream or something like that.
Or you thought it was a loved one.
Yeah, and then when Julie and the family woke up, I told them, I seen somebody in your kitchen. And then it just came back because there's no time in the spiritual world. So these spirits can come and go as they please. And, our lifespan is very short. But they can go on and on and on. So there could be different occurrences when you see them, and other people just may not have those encounters.
Well, let's talk about and reintroduce to our listeners the Horsefly Chronicles haunting. I don't know which one of you want to begin with this and kind of start to educate us on this story. I'll leave that up to both of you to kind of decide.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. So
back 3-4 years ago, Dave, when I was on your show, I want you to listen to this very carefully because it's a little scary. It was me, an ex-worker, which was the project manager of Horsefly, and a psychic from New Jersey. And you were the second show that we ever did. The first one was Bob Bain. And we're doing the show, Darkness Radio, and the show's going really good, and everybody got a chance to speak, very professional. And at the end of the show, the psychic goes to me, I have to talk to you. And she was very demanding, I have to talk to you. And I says, okay. So the show ended, and we sat in the dining room at my friend's house. And she goes, there's something following me ever since I got involved with Horsefly. And at that point, I didn't know what to say. her eyes just didn't look right, and then she looked like she was about to like lean up, and then her eyes were getting dark, and then she just got very, very cold, like vigilant, like she really wanted to attack me at that point, and I didn't know why. What she told me through another voice, which was a very evil voice, is that I know everything you're doing, so watch every move you make. And that scared the living daylights out of me and my friend. And what I got from that, it was that the demon that's been following me my entire life knew that I was about to tell the story of my life and how all this takes place with these entities. And it was forewarning me to be careful of the words that I choose. That night, that girl was in and out of it. We were going to call 911 because she was cold, she was hot, she was flipping out. And we went from morning. She just wasn't right. And after that point, she tried to commit suicide. Evil finds a person's weakest links. And what that means is this. If a person has a drug addiction, alcohol abuse, whatever it is, a mental a problem, the demons will attack that on a person that has that little bit of void and open it up and try to destroy that person. When we found out that she tried to drive her car off a bridge, we tried to break ties with her because it got really bad. At the same time, the guy who was the project manager of Horsefly Productions was being affected in his home, and his wife fell down the stairs and broke her foot. And the next day, he fell down the stairs and broke his tailbone. Now, these videos they're on YouTube, and they're telling the story straight out what happened to them. But these people left Horsefly because they felt like they were being affected by whatever was following me my entire life. Sometimes we think that maybe people are nuts, they're crazy, it's psychosomatic, it's coincidence. But when so many people come forward and they wanted nothing to do with Horsefly at that point, I started to realize that this thing is really evil and it will attack when people least expect it. And the question would be why? I don't know why. And from that point on, people say, where did you get Horsefly, the name? It's because most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, a black fly or a horsefly would circle at the oddest times when something bad was about to happen. I brought other people in to get involved to help me. Like I said, I'm not a paranormal investigator or medium or anything. I wanted to see what was going on within my own life at that point. I brought other people forward, mediums. Now, these are big mediums, and they got involved. They told me what was going on at my home, what the attachments are, and I still didn't believe it, to be honest with you, when they tell me that it's Goatman or Asmodeus. These are things that are biblical. I really didn't believe it. But when they started to show me pictures, and you start to hear recordings, and they bring all this equipment, these spirit boxes and K2 meters and night vision. I didn't know anything about all this equipment. I'm learning at the same time. I says to my wife, you know what? I'm going to take the next step, and I'm going to keep bringing people forward that are in this field. And I want to see if we could debunk it, and if we can't, this is what we're living with. And here today, we're on this show telling you that there's been over 50 people affected. We've had well over 60 teams to the Horsefly Chronicles home in Eastern Pennsylvania, where we live now, to investigate it, research it, document, sleep here, do everything. And then we would go down a checklist about the lighting, the air quality, everything in the home to try to understand it. And what we got out of it was this, that we're dealing with some of the most evil things that are on the face of this earth. And not because it's my story or my home, but because these things do exist within certain people's lives, like mine. Luckily,
why you though, Phil? Why do you believe that these beings are so drawn to Phil Siracusa? Is it something you did in a past life? Is it somebody you were in a past life? Why are they here?
when I was a Native American in a past life, this is what I remember. And I was sitting around a campfire with 3 people, and there was an explosion. And this was the last part that I did remember, and we all died. And these entities or the spirits from that past life, there's a strong possibility that it could be them, because I moved on into the physical world. Once again, I was reincarnated. I could tell you theory after theory, but I can't tell you facts. The only facts I can tell you is that these things are real and that they follow everybody. And I'll tell you, I've had big people here with some pretty big names, and they told me, because we were trying to have these things removed from myself and the home. And the Demon Files, the show that was on a couple of years ago, they all came here. And I remember, what's his name, Ralph Sarchi's going, this is bad. You know, this thing came to my house on Long Island. So you start to realize that everybody's not crazy at this point. Everybody is not, you know, this thing or these entities, they're going around tormenting people before they even get to this home. And that's scary. Now, I had a deliverance. I had a ministry here back 2 years ago in May. I had a Wiccan, I had a shaman, I had a reverend, a deacon. They were all here. There was like 7 of them. Priest. They was an entire group on a Saturday morning. They did everything right. They blessed the property. They blessed every room in the home. They threw holy water, salt. Everybody was in line to follow the next person in command to remove the spirits. And I asked them, what do you think we're dealing with? And they go, pretty much the devil's kids, which would be demons. You know, we all see them? No. But there was a fly and another fly in the house, and then you started to feel a static charge, like a negative electricity, like you walk into a fog after a rainstorm. And it was bad. It got really ugly very quick. And a couple days later, these things came right back into the home. And the lights started flickering in the house. A toy went off. It's on YouTube. And what they do in their own way is saying, we're not leaving. We're not going anywhere. And up until 2 months ago, I had another priest come here and do everything from the Catholic Church to the home. And pretty much what he said was, fill your heart and your void with God, and it will remove the demons and the evil spirits that exist within the home and within yourself. When the priest was here, nothing happened at all. Absolutely nothing. Hours later, the shadows came back as if these spirits play hide and seek.
Well, isn't that terrifying, though? I mean, you had people there delivering and clearing, and they have no power over this evil, even in evoking the name of Jesus?
It is scary. And, you know, I lived in 10 different locations, from Staten Island to New Jersey to Pennsylvania. And I got to tell you this. You know, there's not too much that frightens or scares me, but when you're dealing with unseen forces and you hear whispers and growls, you start to think, like, what's going on here? We've had mediums sleep here. We've had investigation teams sleep here for this reason, to see what's going on here. And their stories are out there of what they experienced in the Horsefly Chronicles home. I tell people this, Dave, don't take my word for it. Because a lot of the stuff I'm saying is absolutely hard to believe. And I get it. Because if I was hearing the story, I probably wouldn't believe it either. So the only thing me and my wife can do at this point is have people in the field come to the home with their equipment and continuously do research to prove to everybody that what we're dealing with is true.
All right, let me ask you kind of a hard question here. And I'm sorry you're going to keep hearing the click from my microphone. I'm getting thunder and lightning here, if that's not creepy enough as we talk about this stuff. So I'm trying to keep the rumbling and booms going from coming over the recorder as we're doing this show. But all right, so you're saying all these people have come there, and many of them have left with attachments and having negative things happen. Is it a good time to maybe stop having people come into your house? Because if there's this kind of after effect and impact, could it be putting other people's lives or souls in danger?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question. I don't know a solid answer to that question. You know, you try to get help, right? Because the church doesn't work. A priest doesn't work. A ministry doesn't work. So you try to get the help by understanding it, right? And trying to capture names of these things.
But we tell everybody, you know, that comes to the house,
Yeah, I mean,
what can happen to them. You know, we don't just, you know, say everybody's aware before they enter.
Yeah, like they're aware. We tell them everything the way we're talking on the show. Like,
Right.
you know, there can be things following you. We're not sure. We're
It
not.
doesn't happen to everybody.
No,
it
it
happens
doesn't.
to certain people. Maybe if they have gifts, or it's not every single person that comes here. Because I mean, I have family members that come here and they're fine. I have friends that come here and they're fine.
You know what it is? Yeah, I want to jump in really quick.
Go ahead.
You know what it is? She's right. If a person comes here, Dave, and they don't acknowledge anything, maybe they don't believe anything, absolutely nothing happens. A person with abilities that tries to provoke, remove, that's when the war starts.
Yeah.
All right, so it's these things will coexist and leave people alone.
Yes.
But when you
Yes.
go in and you start mucking about with it, that's when they seem to attach and start causing problems.
Yes.
Okay.
So we always tell everybody, don't provoke, don't come in here with, you know, negative feelings, or don't walk into certain rooms thinking bad things, because it just might not end well.
Yeah. Like I have my kids' friends. I remember they came here and they were talking about the ghost that's here. One of them, we got a name. Her name is Sarah. And they're mocking it, and they're in the basement. I don't believe in Sarah. It's a joke. Now, I was hearing this upstairs in the kitchen, and I came down and says, don't do that. And then sure enough, about 20 minutes later, there's a fist fight in my basement with a bunch of teenage kids. And then one of the teenage kids that were doing the mocking wound up getting in trouble with the law a week later. You know,
So we don't really let me just say that we don't really let the kids down here anymore
yeah, we deadbolted the door.
because of that. So, you know, we want to keep the kids safe, so we don't let them down here anymore.
Not that demons don't travel through walls.
Right. I was going to say, they've come from hell, but they can't
The
get through a
negativity
cheap
is
plywood
down.
door.
I mean, they could go anywhere they want. It's just that in the basement is a different energy than the rest of the house. It's like you walk into like a shark tank down here. We're down here now broadcasting. We're not in the room that we call the portal, but we're in the actual basement. 2, 3 in the morning, if you're down here alone, good luck. You know, it's just something that plays with your mind. It makes you feel very, very evil. You know, I've had a demonologist, what's his name, Winterley, come here, a guy who he practices this stuff, to see if this is along the lines. And he came here and says, Phil, this is bad. He's like, I've been at castles and enclaves, but the energy, the negative energy here is so bad that, you know, I don't know how you live here. So then I would say to my wife, do we move? But these things travel with us. It just seems that this particular home, everything happens that could possibly happen within the spiritual world.
Why do you stay then, out of curiosity? I mean, most people would think, get the hell out.
It's a tremendous home. It's an estate neighborhood. It's not like, you know, we put a lot of money into a big house. And it's like,
it's not the kind of house that you would think of that's a haunted house. I mean,
yeah.
It's when people pull up to this house, they're like, they can't even imagine the things that are going on that we're saying. You don't get that feeling until you walk in.
Now, back in October, I spoke to Lori Johnson. She's from the Ghost of Shepherdstown. We were on the phone, and she was remote viewing the home. And, you know, she says, look, there's a shapeshifter in that house, which would be a skinwalker in Indian terms. It's something that tries to imitate somebody in the physical world. They're very evil. They control whatever's over there, the land, because this was all Native American land back in the day. There were tribes here. So it's something that it's not taken lightly. You know, she felt like these entities, there's no controlling them. There's no practitioner or somebody with a magic wand that's going to remove them and say, be gone, because that's impossible.
Okay.
We've went all those rounds. We've done all that.
So you've done the battle, and you can't get this thing to clear. It's just like a ripped portal in your home.
Yes.
How many entities or spirits do you believe infest your home?
I don't even know.
Hundreds.
Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with people right now in Las Vegas that are mediums, and do I believe it's hundreds? I don't know. I know there's a lot of shadows at certain times. Not every single day and not every minute something happens.
Right.
It doesn't work like that.
What's
My walls don't
What's
bleed.
the most frightening thing that has happened to you in this home so far, Julia?
I think it's when that day that I saw myself in a picture that was not me. And it was
A skinwalker.
Skinwalker.
So,
Yes.
well, explain that to us. What happened?
Well, I was standing in the bathroom.
Right.
And I remember being in the bathroom, but there was a picture taken. And in the picture, it looked like me, but it wasn't me.
And that was 3 years ago. I took the picture in the hallways when I felt something was in the house. And then through the reflection, we're looking at the reflection of the mirror in the bathroom, and it wasn't the back of my wife.
No.
And that's when the alarms went off.
Shadow figure.
Okay. And what about you, Phil? What is the most challenging or frightening thing that you've personally witnessed yourself?
The most recent, scariest thing is a picture of a goat man. We tried, and this was taken 3 weeks ago in the basement. We've sent the picture out to be analyzed to see if it was some kind of a matrix in or a shadow reflection. It's what it is, and it's scary. And I think that really did it to me, seeing that. And there's no words for it. There's absolutely no words for that. What that picture is. It's a goat man. It's
now, is this posted anywhere where people can see this thing for themselves?
It's going to make everywhere soon. It's all over our Facebook right now. It's scary. It's really scary. What you're looking at is a demon, and it's half goat, half man. And it's not like you see these things with your eyes, because you don't.
Yeah, that you see them in the pictures.
Yeah, and I asked the teams, how does this work? Why can't we see naked with the eye, but the pictures? And they explained that the cameras can do a lot more than our eyes could obviously do. And that's why the cameras are picking these things up in this home. We'll be more than happy to show you this picture. It's just an unbelievable picture.
All right. Now, what is the Facebook page as well, so I can make sure that we do reference that and post it?
It's Philip Siracusa.
Okay.
And the Horsefly Chronicles.
All right. I'm going to pull this up myself. I've got to see this. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll continue talking about their experiences, and we're going to break into the Legend of Cropsey from Staten Island, New York. Very weird, very chilling kind of tales. We'll talk about that when we return. You're listening to the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness.
Beyond the Darkness.
All right, you have supplied me with a picture, and I'm talking with Julia and Phil Siracusa. You've supplied me with the picture of this goat head man. And, on that list of people that are going to come to your house to investigate, don't look for my name. You're not going to find it. I won't be there. You guys need to just burn the place down and get a nice cottage somewhere, like the Wisconsin Dells. That's friendly. It's fun. You don't want to be in that house anymore. This thing is wicked looking.
Yeah, I mean, we're laughing because if we don't have a little laugh here and there, we'll go insane.
Sure.
But it's really nothing to laugh about. It's scary.
Yeah, it's wow. That's really weird. I mean, I'd love to see the original photograph and what this is, but that's a very unique piece, and we'll have a link up to their Facebook page so you can stalk their pictures and see this for yourself. Very, very. Ooh, that's discomforting. That's for sure. You guys are surrounded by the paranormal. You've got all of this weird stuff going on a regular basis. You're opening up your home to people to come investigate and spend time there. And you've talked about quite a few people, even Ralph Sarchi, who went in and said this was not good. Now, he said that it followed him back to his own home, whatever this thing was.
Well, no, actually, it visited him before he got here. It was really? February, 2 years ago. And he came down, and before he came down, he got a visitation from one of these entities causing him problems in his house.
How did he know that it was an entity from your location and not just a general demon out screwing with him? I mean, he's always messing in that area and battling them. You'd think that he'd just have some natural-born enemies that have nothing to do with the Horsefly Chronicles home.
You know, that's a very good question.
Well, a lot of times when you ask that question to certain people, they know where it's coming from because I guess they're so experienced. And I know that working with one of the girls I'm working with, she knows exactly where certain things are coming from. I can't understand
I think they could feel the energy from some things. You know, maybe they have that ability to feel like a certain negative energy that, you know, would visit them, and then they come to the home and this is it. This is what I was dealing with at my house. And I've heard that over and over again from different people that they had visitations. They were circled by a black fly, you know, and I raised my eyebrows in a lot of this stuff. I'm like, really? And, you know, the things that people tell me, and then some people will truly avoid you, which is the scary thing too, because they'll avoid you at all cost so that these things don't come after them, you know? So, you know, one thing I do talk about is that demons are way ahead of us, and not to give them any credit, but they know what we're going to do before we do it. If a blind man can't see, and he's also deaf and he can't talk, can a demon communicate with him? The answer is yes, through the mind's eye. And
I don't know if our listeners just heard that while you're chatting, all of a sudden the sound of a door slamming. I'm the only one here.
It wasn't here.
No, it was here. It was here, but I'm looking at 3 of the 4 doors in this room, and they're all wide open. But the door, I don't know if you guys heard it come over, but a door just, bam, slammed here in my home. Very weird. All right, good. Yeah, I can do this over the phone. That's great. Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been great chatting with you. Have a good night. Now we're going to go over to the religious channel for the rest of the evening. That was weird.
Well, you know, it's funny, but it's not funny because we did a show Monday night, and the lady had a big storm. Denise Pridemore there was a big storm out in Kansas. It was hail, and she had to cut the show really quick. And then people said after the fact that they were getting sick from the stream because we were streaming the show from the portal. You know, do entities travel through internet waves or energy waves? I think they're like ley lines for these things. Most definitely.
All right, let's veer away from this for a little bit. And one of the other things I wanted to speak to you about, and Julie, I know you're doing quite a bit in this, the Legend of Cropsey. There's a documentary, a film out there that's available, and I was always kind of under the impression that this was kind of one of those mockumentaries, a pretend documentary about this supposed boogeyman type creature. Talk to me a little bit about this, and you guys are from Staten Island, from that area.
Yeah.
What is Cropsey?
Okay, well, growing up as a child in the 70s and 80s in Staten Island, you were always told by your parents, you know, be careful coming at this time or the Cropsey will get you, the Legend of Cropsey. Well, the Legend of Cropsey, a lot of the children thought really was a legend. It was fake. It was just something the parents would tell them to scare them, to get them home, to listen to them. But it actually was real. We had a state school in the 1960s that all the children with disabilities were thrown into, I mean, I hate to say it, but, they were thrown in there by their parents and by doctors who didn't know what to do with them. It could be just as less serious as autism, and then there was children that really couldn't handle the real world by themselves. But there was a man named Andre Rand that worked there, and he would live in one of the buildings next to the school called the Strawberry Colonel, and he would go through the tunnels and take all the little children and bring them over there and kill them, molest them. He was just a bad man. That's how it started. When I was in 1982, there was a little girl in my class. Her name was Holly Ann Hughes. She went missing, and Andre Rand kidnapped her. So one day, me, my husband, and my friends, we were watching the documentary on TV, and Holly Ann Hughes came on, and I said to him, I know this little girl. She was in my class. I remember this story. And sure enough, we watched the whole thing, and after watching the whole thing, I just started researching and digging and just trying to find out everything that I can find out about this case, because I was young too. I was only 7 years old when she went missing. And, I always remembered the Legend of Cropsey. I remembered her missing. I remember how it hurt the whole community in the town. She lived on my block. She lived on the part of the block that I wasn't allowed down. But we were close and we were friends, and she was in my class. So I just started researching, and now I'm here, and I have found a group of girls, and we are going there in a few weeks, and we are going to investigate and hopefully find out what happened. And now there's been a few teams that's done it before, and they don't have the kind of connection that I have, so I'm hoping that I can bring something else to the table.
What exactly are you bringing to the table? What do you, just this personal connection of your own?
I want to find Holly Ann Hughes. Also, I want to see what happened to all the other children. It's not just about her. There's so many other little children that are missing. There was a little girl named Jennifer Swagger that went missing about a year or two before her, and her body was found, and Andre Rand was charged with her kidnapping. Not her murder, her kidnapping, because there wasn't enough evidence to frame him for murder. He was also charged with Holly Ann Hughes kidnapping. So he's sitting in jail right now for their kidnapping, but not their murder. So it's a tricky story.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Is this supernatural in nature? Is this just a nasty, creepy child abduction scenario? What do you think is really going on?
I believe that there was a cult involved, and they were working together and kidnapping children all over Staten Island and some parts of New York. I think there was a group working together, and Andre Rand was targeting everyone on my block, and she wasn't so lucky, and she went missing, and he was charged, and they never found her body. So her body was never found. And it's just heartbreaking to me because she was my friend.
Totally understandable. And this Andre Rand, what can you tell us about him? What background do you have on this guy?
He has mental disabilities himself, and he was, even being mentally disabled, he was still hired to work with children in the Woodbridge State School in Staten Island. And he was a really bad man, and he did a lot of terrible things to a lot of kids, and nobody even knew it because there was not that many workers there. There was maybe one worker to maybe 200 kids. So a lot of these kids that went missing from him, no one even knew they were gone. Their parents didn't even come visit them. A lot of the parents never came to see these kids. That's why it was called the Legend of Cropsey. It was like a boogeyman. But really it was a man doing these things, kidnapping little kids. Well, it started from the 60s.
Now, is this associated with one specific place, or are there many different disappearances and locations associated with it?
It's one place. There was one other girl that went missing in Brooklyn, and they do believe that Andre Rand had something to do with it. But most of these children that went missing were in Staten Island. That had to do with Andre Rand.
You would think, though, if he was kind of slow, how would he have gotten away with this for so long?
Well, I think that he had his disabilities were minor. Maybe he was autistic, on the spectrum. He was able to hold a job, but it was later noticed that he did have disabilities that no one ever knew. And I think in jail, and while they were evaluating him, they found out.
And that's what you believe is going on. So,
yes.
Going out there, are you going to try to use the supernatural to find her? Is that the idea? Mediumistic abilities, or?
Yes.
Okay.
We're going to try. Mm-hmm. I have a friend. I have two girls. That one is a very good medium. She's coming down from Oklahoma, and we're going to definitely do what we can do and try to find answers.
All right. If you find this and you find her body, are you worried at all about the involvement and putting yourself into this part of the history? Because that's gonna bring a lot of attention, good and bad, to you.
I don't know I hope that we're going to find something. I have a lot of places that I need to look at. There's something out there that hasn't been found. It could be anything of hers. But I'm hoping to find something and get answers, with my team.
Yeah, that's, I wish you a lot of luck with that. That's quite an undertaking. Are you concerned for your wife doing that kind of work, and especially with that kind of a dark situation?
It is a dark place, yeah.
Well, I talked to her about it. The scary part is that building is tremendous, abandoned, and you don't know who's there.
Right.
Now, the fact that happened in the 80s, right? So we're going back 30-something years ago, but, there's still, I'm sure, other people around,
There's still people that live on the ground.
So it's scary, and I told her, do what you got to do, but don't spend the entire night there. Get out, and then go back the following day.
Well, yeah, and is it unnerving to you that, that's opening up a whole new can of spiritual worms for you and your family?
Yeah, it's something that my wife, her heart is set on. She wants to do it. I think that she's getting more opened up to the paranormal world, the spiritual world. Ever since we had an event here in October at the house, she met a lot of people, and, it's a very interesting field. It's very, very interesting. You can't go head on into it, and you can't live day to day believing everything. You have to be grounded, live your life, but yet use it as a hobby if you're going to go out and be an investigator, because sometimes you could walk into things you just don't want to walk into. One thing I've learned, Dave, is I tell people this, a lot of paranormal teams I talk about it, like, it's entertaining to go out and search for ghosts or spirits or demons or whatever you want to call it. But it's the same thing as a cop or a fireman putting yourself on the line of duty, because the truth really is that a paranormal investigator does not know if they're going to go home with an attachment, and if that attachment could be costly to that person's life. So there's a fine line, and you got to be very, very careful, because I have seen investigators, all of a sudden they went off the deep end, and a lot of it has to do with provoking and mocking things that they don't see.
I agree. And I also have the experience because I live in the Horselet Chronicles home.
Yeah, so one thing we learned, I wouldn't walk in this house or in the basement alone and start calling out names and making fun of things, because then things retaliate. Understand that even if you can't see it, respect it. That's the best way I could put it.
All right, well, that's pretty good advice any way you look at it. People are always fascinated by the paranormal. They're, looking into it, you just mentioned. It can be fun to go out and try to make these kind of connections. And how do we know I mean, people are going into places all the time thinking it might be some kind of, just spirit, disembodied human. But, these dark entities and dark attachments seem to be a lot more prevalent, or so it appears nowadays.
That's true. And people don't know what they're walking into. And I think it's still the people that used to live in these old houses that died, or abandoned buildings. I could tell you that I don't believe that's the case. I was at the Haldeman Mansion a year ago, a very active place. And I don't believe it's what they're saying it is there. I believe that there's other things around that are affecting people. So you got to be very careful. When I go out, I do a lot of lectures now. I try to tell people, be very cautious. Don't think it's not all a joke. It's like touching a Ouija board. It's just a board of cardboard, right? Plastic blanket. But it's the intent of a human being, right? It's our intent that if you push too much, you might open a door that you don't want open. And people ask me to give an example, and here is the example. If somebody you know and love is dying in the hospital, and you pray that they get better, you're praying to God or angels or whoever. Well, on the flip side of that is the dark and the demons, that the demons will also come after people who have that little bit of opening and question mark and void towards the paranormal spirit.
No, you're cutting in and out on me really bad all of a sudden.
Have that, and it's like bad saying, "Oh, I wish I could say words."
You're cutting in and out on me really bad. Yeah, your audio just started dipping in and out as you're giving these words of advice. I think the spirits there are not happy that you're trying to enlighten people.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, I think I'm getting that too.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll wrap it up here. I'll put up links to your site, to the books, and ways for people to follow you both. And I wish you continued luck and success in dealing with your hauntings, and hope that you both come out of this and your children come out of it unscathed and unharmed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure speaking with you. And we will be back again tomorrow with more of the best in paranormal talk radio. I'm Dave Schrader, and this is Beyond the Darkness.